we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Keep doing what we've been doing.
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's a little bad. This is Mike Nabors. This is PewterPirates.com. Welcome to our podcast, A Few Extra Bucs. That was Jameis Winston and Cam Brate. We will hear from Jameis Winston coming up. They were alluding to the turnovers. They want to keep doing what they're doing offensively, but obviously they don't want to keep doing what they're doing with the turnovers. We'll delve into that and so much more. We're going to bring in the voice of reason, our producer, Justin Thomas, and, of course, our Buccaneer insider, Roy Cummings. But first off, we would like to thank our co-title sponsors, House of Brews and Lutz on the corner of Northdale, Mabry, and Van Dyke, and Sea Dog Brewing Company, two great locations in Clearwater and Treasure Island on the beach. Great brews, great service, great place to hang out. All right, Justin, how's your week going, my friend? Everything good?
Everything's been great, yeah.
Okay, you pulled on a lot of sound once again. I really appreciate your time. Roy, let's bring you in. We kind of had fun with that open a little bit, but this is a football team right now that's 3-3, and it just seems like when you listen to the local media in Tampa and you listen to sports talk radio, you would almost think that they've won one or two games. Do you kind of get that feeling right now? I mean, they're 3-3. There's a lot to play for right now.
You are absolutely right, Mike. It's amazing to me. I was on a WDAE 620 with J.P. Peterson earlier this week, and I said on the show, I was like, will Bucs fans ever be happy? I mean, they won the game the other day against the Browns, and I understand it's the Browns, but a win is a win, and everybody's dissecting it so much and basically almost discounting the victory as if it really doesn't matter because, well, they didn't play that well, and it was only the Browns, and they had to go to overtime to beat them, and this, that, and the other. Let me remind our listeners here, guys, and maybe I'm reminding you as well, the Buccaneers have the number one ranked offense in the NFL, the number one ranked passing game in the NFL. Their rushing attack is not so special. Their defense is not so special, but they're kind of in the middle of the pack on third downs on defense. And yeah, as you said, 3-3 and certainly not out of the running for a playoff spot at this point in the season. Do they have some work ahead of them? Absolutely. Do they have to get a little bit better in a lot of places? Absolutely. But this is something to celebrate, I think. The fact that this team has the ability that it's leading the league in two categories, which forever this team was incapable of being anywhere near the top in overall offense, total offense, passing yards, things like that. It's a new day in Tampa Bay. I'm just a little surprised fans aren't enjoying it more.
All right. I always like to accentuate the positive, and we've done that. But I think a big source of the pessimism is no Quan Alexander the rest of the year. The heartbeat of this defense, people can say what they want about Gerald McCoy, but Quan Alexander was voted a captain for a reason. And what Dirk Cutter said about halftime of that game against the Browns, where he came out of the training room, really inspired this team moving forward. And Cutter even mentioned it today. It was something he hadn't seen, and he's been around football for a long time. The way that, A, they responded to Quan, but B, the way the team kind of responded on the field after that. Here's what Dirk Cutter said about the leadership this week on the practice field without Quan Alexander.
I don't think you replace that guy. I think other guys, you can't ask guys to be something they're not. I don't think Levante is going to turn into that guy. I think Levante is going to just play his same outstanding, solid, consistent football. But I just think energy-wise, they're going to have to absorb that as a group.
Dirk Cutter, being honest there, everybody leads in a different way. In fact, Jason Pierre-Paul says he likes to lead by example, even though he's a great interview and he's a very animated guy. How do you think this Quan Alexander dynamic's going to hurt this team? Roy, we talked about it in Tuesday's podcast, but he's really an X factor in so many ways for this football team as a whole.
He is. He really is the heartbeat of the defense. In a lot of ways, one of the heartbeats of the team, really. And but I don't believe it's a situation where as Quan goes, so goes the defense, or so go the Buccaneers. I don't think it's that case at all. It was just a couple of weeks ago, really, certainly after the Chicago game, when Quan Alexander was coming under a lot of scrutiny and catching a lot of heat for not playing very good football. Now I think he's played a lot better since, but but I still think that I thought he played better in the Atlanta game, which he has a tendency to do very well in Atlanta for whatever reason. maybe because it's close to home for him. He played, I thought, very well until he got hurt in the against the Browns. But I don't think he's a guy just yet that is irreplaceable. The job is the job, and Darius Taylor's a pretty good football player. He doesn't have the name recognition just yet that. Probably because he changed his name from Adarius Glanton, but he doesn't have the name recognition of Quan Alexander. But I'm not ready to say that he can't play at the same level as Quan Alexander. And I'm excited to see a little bit of Devontae Bond, and maybe even see a little bit of guys like we'll see if Minter is up for this team, Kevin Minter, the newcomer. If maybe Riley Bullock gets in a little bit, there's no question this team has lost yet another key cog. Gerald McCoy was one of those, is one of those rather. Quan Alexander is definitely one of those. But the problems with this defense still are primarily up front and in the secondary. I still think, and I talked about this before, Mike. We've talked about this, how at linebacker is probably the one position where the Buccaneers could lose a player or two and survive and be just fine. You never want to lose a guy like Quan. I think they're going to be okay. We'll see, but I think they're going to be okay.
All right, you mentioned Adarius. We talked about Riley Bullock, and Kevin Minter is a guy. I had a chance to visit with him in the locker room. I covered him when he was at LSU, and he talked about a few weeks ago. He's getting married in February. He went to Tiger Stadium and attended an LSU game for the first time as a fan. He'd played in a lot of games there, but obviously he was a first-round pick of the Cardinals, and he's been in the NFL a while, and he wasn't sure if he would get a phone call or not. But I called up to Kevin Minter, and here's what he had to say about joining the Bucs. Kevin, just talk about the opportunity here in Tampa. It seems like this is a team that could use you right now, and right. What do you see as your role here?
Just trying to get in where I fit in. I'm a vet. I've been in this league a while. It's kind of a young room. Obviously other than Devontae, and I just want to contribute the best way I can, whether it be a linebacker or, special teams. I'm here to help and just help this team win. So. Kind of LSU South. I mean, you got Kendell Beckwith, you got Quan Alexander, you got yourself. You're comfortable. I don't know how well you know those guys, but is it good to be around guys that are from similar surroundings? Oh, yeah. Quan was my freshman when I was in college or whatever, so. I'm real close with him and Beck. I used to see him. I used to go back or whatever. And it's a good squad, man. But you say LSU South, but it's about 2 or 3 of us on every team nowadays. So it's
true.
It's LSU NFL really. So.
It sure is, and he should know, playing in Arizona with Patrick Peterson and the Honey Badger himself, Tyrann Mathieu. So, I really like talking to him. I don't know how much he's going to contribute at all, but I thought, here's the deal with the Bucs right now. Everybody wants Patrick Peterson, Roy. Everybody wants that Jason Pierre-Paul / big name and free agency. But here's what Dirk Cutter had to say about the trade deadline coming up and what he knows.
Jason has talked to me about a couple guys, but I personally am not involved in that right now, other than to listen to whatever they want to tell me, because we're busy doing our other thing. But I can assure you that Jason's looking into all avenues, and it's his job to make decisions that are best for the Bucs, and I trust him to make those decisions because he's good at that.
I think we'd all like to see Patrick Peterson, but I'm hearing they want a 1 for Patrick Peterson. I think that's pretty steep right now. What do you think, Roy?
Yeah, you still got a lot of areas that you got to fix up on this team, really. They're a little bit thin, I think, in the middle of the offensive line. Number one, you've got to start thinking about a replacement down the road for DeMar Dotson. Your running back situation is not special right now. You've got plenty of receivers and tight ends. That's probably not an issue. Quarterback, you seem to be fine, I think. Defensively, however, if this team really struggles, it's an awful lot to be given up at this point in the season to save a season where you're looking at, probably being a 500 team. So to me, I would be holding on to those draft picks. I don't know that I'd be giving up a 1 for a Patrick Peterson. Let's see what happens. I honestly think, Mike, that this game this week is going to determine a lot. I think if the Buccaneers win this game, you could see them get very active. They might get aggressive and go out and get a couple of players because they'll be thinking, okay, we just won a big game on the road against a fairly viable opponent. We've got a shot at this thing, and but if they lose, it could go the other way, and they may say, okay, you know what, let's just go with what we got and move forward. So I think this game this week is going to have a lot to do with it. You won't see the Bucs do anything before that. I'll be shocked if that happens. But this game this week, I think, could determine which way they go, whether they're aggressive in trying to get a player, be it Patrick Peterson or someone else, or basically stand on the sidelines, which is kind of what they've been doing, really. I mean, what they've done so far is just pick up bodies, and bodies that they know. And that's the other thing. The Bucs have to believe that these players that they're picking up in trades, be it a Patrick Peterson or anybody else, is a good fit inside the locker room. The last thing you want to do is start to disrupt what you think is a pretty good chemistry inside that locker room. I don't think Patrick Peterson would do that. I think he'd be a welcome addition. But still, at the price of a number 1 draft pick, that's a lot to ask. So you wait and see if that price can somehow come down.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the New Orleans Saints, they've basically given up their draft this season. For next year because they're all in this year. I don't think the Bucs are as close as the New Orleans Saints, but I think the intriguing thing about Patrick Peterson is you have these young guys in Carlton Davis and MJ Stewart. He could be a perfect bridge and then be that mainstay guy for a while. So, speaking of the trade deadline, we have our 3 and Out segment. We're going to ask Roy some fun questions, kind of hypothetical questions on if he was the Buccaneer general manager, which he'd be a great one, by the way. All right, let's stay on the defensive side of the ball. Kendell Beckwith, it seems like a soap opera every week. When is he going to return? Doesn't look like he's going to return this week. I had a chance to catch up with Beckwith in the locker room on his status. You're obviously getting restless, but I know you're getting closer. How anxious are you to get back now?
Very, 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 very anxious to get back. I've been working my butt out to get back out there. It's just a process. I'm enjoying the process, man. As soon as I can get back out there, you better believe I'm gonna be back out there, though. No doubt.
That's a tough situation. He's obviously a guy that's a smart player, contributed right away, and the Bucs could use him. And before we jump to the offense, one more thing about the defense. The Duffmeister, the Duffster, Mark Duffner, was on the sideline for the Cleveland game in his debut as defensive coordinator. And that was his choice. And Dirk Cutter is going to say in this fight coming up how he lets his assistant coaches be where they want to be. But here was Dirk Cutter's impressions on Duffner's first game on the sidelines and his choice to be there.
I was really impressed with, how Duff, as the linebacker coach, Duff is one of those guys that brings energy to the team. As the defensive coordinator, he has to keep a little bit cooler head, and because he's making the calls every time. I thought he did a really good job of that. And through the years, plenty of people have done it both ways. So whatever they're comfortable with, and but I did like having him on the field. But if he said he wanted to go to the box, then that would be fine too.
The first game we talked about this defense simplifying things, but Cutter corrected people in the media saying, they tried to do that in the Atlanta game, Mike Smith's last game, and it was after the bye. We touched on the last podcast, but, I think this defense showed some great signs in that Cleveland game, especially the young guys in the secondary who we've talked about. It'll be interesting, Roy, to see how they potentially progress on the road this weekend.
Well, I think they learned a valuable lesson that when you've got a bunch of young guys out there, and even when you've got older guys who are new, like Jason Pierre-Paul or some of the, guys like that, you've got to simplify the defense a little bit. You can't ask too much of these guys because if it's too complex, they think too much. And if they think too much, they slow down. Thinking slows down an athlete. You want athletes to play natural. Just go out and play. You don't want them having to think about, where am I supposed to be on this play? Where am I supposed to, what's my responsibility here? You want it to be simple for them. That's how they play fast. You hear that phrase a lot in the NFL, play fast. The way you play fast is where you're going to be, at every moment, and you're quick to get there. The way you do that is what you're doing. And when you complicate things and ask guys to make a bunch of checks and things like that, that's when trouble happens. So And that's where the Bucs were. They were just trying to, Mike Smith was running his defense and basically asking the young kids, which were in the lineup as a result of injuries. It wasn't necessarily designed this way, but he was asking those young kids to all, basically have, still play fast, yet they're still thinking. They don't know the defense that well. And it really kind of hamstrung this team a little bit. So what happened last week was you saw the team simplify things. Everything went a little bit faster. They played a little bit faster, played a little bit more natural, and the results were much better. So I think you'll see that going forward. But the key, again, simplify it. It's funny. We hear fans complaining about, the same old Mike Smith defense, this, that, and the other, and everything else. Sometimes a simple defense executed very well works, and I understand it was ages ago, leather helmets almost and all that kind of stuff. But Vince Lombardi used to run the same stinking 5 or 8 offensive plays all the time, okay? And it was just that they out-executed everybody. Move fast forward to, the late 1990s and early 2000s, and the Buccaneers ran the same defensive scheme every single game. Everybody knew exactly where they were going to be, what they were going to be doing, where the windows were, and you know what? Didn't matter. Bucs were so good at it, they were so fast that they executed it to perfection. And those are 2 examples of how simple can be splendid if, in fact, you know what you're doing. And that's where they've got to get back to, especially with these kids.
Dirk Cutter brought up Kevin Minter today about how you bring a veteran on. It was alluding to some of the things you just talked about. They have, so much knowledge, and it's easier, obviously, for them to pick up a defense very quickly. We'll see how much Minter has left in the tank. With Taylor and Bulla, it'll be interesting to see the reps there. All right, let's jump to the offensive side of the ball. Tuesday, we talked about the turnover since Jameis Winston's been back, and we just released a video preview with this angle as well. Check that out on pewterpirates.com. We do it every week, previewing the games, the best video content of any site out there. But let's begin with turnovers. And Jameis Winston was asked about, turning the ball over 7 times since he returned in the second half of that Bears game. And it's obviously an emphasis on this offense to get better.
Definitely, and that's our focus every single week is to eliminate those. So we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing. I think we can execute a lot better, and part of that execution is eliminating that word that you just said there. So we just got to keep getting better, man. There's no reason to get too far up or too far down. We're gonna stay in the middle and keep coming to work every day and doing what we need to do to get better.
Jameis Winston was asked a lot of somewhat tough questions today, I thought, just about turnovers, about, just different parts of his game, and didn't flinch, Roy. You can say what you want about Jameis Winston, but never gets real defensive with criticism. I've noticed that about him.
No, I'm not. I won't go so far as to say he likes the criticism, but he knows his role and he knows his job, and he's very confident that he's going to do the job. The other thing is he also knows that, all right, he's got 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Not good. But he also knows that half of those interceptions are not his fault. And he also knows that he's thrown at least 1 touchdown pass that Deshaun Jackson failed to haul in. And, some other passes of his into the end zone have ended up as picks, or at least one did. And it was a result of, just not, being off by about 6 inches. A ball bounces off somebody's helmet and somebody else grabs it. So I think he realizes that the numbers don't really show how well they're not an indication, in my opinion, of how he's played. I think he's played better than the numbers suggest right now. I mean, you go back 2 weeks ago, almost 80% completion, 70% plus for sure, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Certainly played well enough to win. Last week, a couple of interceptions, no touchdown passes because one was dropped. A few other drop passes, not as good a numbers as you would like, but at the end of the day, he led the Bucs on 2 game-winning drives. One failed because the kicker didn't make the kick. The other one worked because the kicker made that miraculous 59-yard field goal. But and granted, it was a 59-yard field goal because James took a sack, but at the end of the day, it's the overall picture, and I think he's just playing a lot better than the numbers suggest because a lot of those picks are not his fault.
He's a gunslinger to some degree. You're going to get that with him. You're going to get it with him, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to leave his game fully, but he's going to give you the good and the bad. He's also going to run with the football. He was a leading rusher for the Bucs against the Cleveland Browns, and this is what he had to say about not his passing game, his running game.
That's just my will, man. I just sometimes you pull the ball down. Sometimes I hold the ball too much. I think those big guys like when I pull the ball down and get a couple extra yards for them. But we got other guys to do that. I mean, I don't know how teams are going to play us week to week. I consider myself a run threat, but a lot of people don't view that. My main focus is making sure that I execute everything else, and if I have to make a play, whether it's with my arm or with my feet, that I can do it.
When I hear that, Roy, I'm not sure how you interpret this. I that was like a message to the fans. That was also a lot of coaching in that soundbite of things his coaches have said. Maybe you need to, not do it as much or be careful. But I thought there was a lot in that answer that you can interpret, maybe message to a fan, but also things that his coaches have told him about running football.
Well, yeah, the coaches certainly, running the ball with Jameis is the last thing they want him to do. There's no doubt. They do not want him to expose himself to any injuries. He gets hit enough as it is. They don't want to expose him anymore. But you know what? There's something you can't take out of Jameis Winston, and it's what has the potential to make him special, is that he will not give up on a play. Sometimes he doesn't know when to give up on a play, and that can be good and bad. I mean, you don't want to coach that out of him. You want to coach better decision-making into him, but you don't want to coach out of him that I'll do anything to help my team win mentality, which is what he has. And running the ball the way he does is part of it. Him running around and still throwing it downfield, sometimes making throws that you'd wish he didn't make, but they become spectacular plays and things like that. You can't have it both ways. You can't ask for Jameis Winston. People don't want game managers, right? So you can't ask Jameis Winston to be a game manager and then complain about when he makes plays the way he does. You can't have. I mean, would you rather have I guess an Andy Dalton type who basically is kind of a game manager type, not really going to do a whole lot of spectacular stuff, going to be about as good as the people around him, and that's it? Or do you want a guy who elevates the play of the players around him? I'll take Jameis Winston. There's going to be bad with that, but there's going to be bad with the other style quarterbacks too. The guys who just kind of sit back in the pocket and just take what's given to them, those guys aren't necessarily, they're not any better. They're not winning any more than Jameis Winston because, they're not necessarily making things happen. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. I just think Jameis Winston gets way too much heat. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If more players on this team on both sides of the ball were playing as well as Jameis Winston is or usually does, this team would be a lot better off.
Well, what would help Jameis Winston, Roy, is a running game. Peyton Barber's had some flashes this year, but he's banged up. And could possibly Ronald Jones be the guy Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals? Peyton Barber was limited today in practice. We'll see how it is moving forward. I had a chance to catch up to Ronald Jones, who doesn't speak to the media too often, and I asked him about potentially having a larger role on Sunday after scoring his first touchdown and getting more work last Sunday against the Browns. After getting a taste last week, how prepared are you to have more of a role in this offense?
Yeah, I'm very prepared. That's part of the work that we're doing up here. Just a lot of studying, in the game plan, working with coaches after practice, all that stuff, trying to get ready for Sunday.
How much do you think you've improved since training camp and over the course of this regular season?
I think I've improved a lot. Working with Monk after practice, throwing with James after practice, on the jugs, all that. So my hands are there. Pass protection, I've been identifying, who the blitzes are, where it's coming from. You can get a feel from pre-snap. So all that stuff, is working and is helping me play faster.
I don't think any Buccaneer has been more of a whipping boy the past couple months than Ronald Jones. I mean, he came in as this home run hitter from USC, second-round pick. Doug Martin's not in town anymore. The Bucs desperately need a running back to make splash plays. Peyton Barber, Roy and I, we both supported Peyton Barber heading into the season. But Ronald Jones, let's face it, he's been a disappointment. He hasn't been what everybody expected. But then again, Roy, he's a rookie, and it seems to be he's getting more confident.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we saw it a little bit last week, and that effort should give him a little bit of confidence. He had a couple of nice plays there. I think he's getting used to things. Look, one thing, and these are good things, really. Dirk Cutter's made it clear that the struggles that Ronald Jones has had are not a result of not knowing the offense, which was a problem a year ago with the rookie running back the Buccaneers had, who's no longer here. It's not a result of or a matter of him not working hard enough. He's certainly doing that. You heard it in that clip, him talking about working extra on the jugs machine to make sure he's got his hands are in shape so that he's ready to be a part, in every facet of the offense. It's really just a matter of, I think, the speed of the league and maybe some of the hits or whatever have caught him a little bit by surprise, or maybe he just hasn't found his rhythm yet. He's not used to getting a lot of touches a game, but I think he knows, what's best for him. He hasn't really hit that groove yet. But, here's a guy who is a home run hitter. And anytime he's out on the field, if the offensive line can give him a crease, I'll tell you, this guy can hurt you. So he could quickly become one of those guys who's the talk of the NFL. He just needs a crease or two to do it. And that could be coming anytime soon.
Yeah, this is why we don't rehearse before the show, because that leads me to my other question with Ronald Jones. And I agree wholeheartedly, Roy. Sometimes you just need that breakthrough moment. Running backs are predicated on rhythm a lot of times. If you burst a big run, how much would that help your confidence and your rhythm moving forward?
Yeah, that would help. A lot of things. Obviously get the offense, more balance, and then just get everybody, hyped, making big plays. I want to be that guy, that it factor. So still working on that, and it's gonna come. So.
It's going to come. Roy, it's amazing. All these guys are great athletes at this level, but it's so mental too, especially if you're a rookie. It would be amazing to me if he has that breakthrough moment and if he just, capitalizes off it. We've seen in the league before. Frankly, I covered the New Orleans Saints. Mark Ingram had a hard time because he had to share the load. And when he finally got his chance, he took advantage of it. And you mentioned the rhythm, and you hear Ronald Jones there. That's what's fun about watching this game on Sunday. If he does get his chance, will he take advantage, and could that breakthrough moment really help him?
Yeah, I think you're right. And here, for fans who may not understand what Ronald Jones may be going through, we keep talking about confidence. Look, he was he was an elite back at the college level, but he wasn't one of those 3 or 4 or 5 backs that everybody talked about when the draft came around. He wasn't in that Nick Chubb, Sony Michel class necessarily at that point. He was like a level below. And you had to really do your homework to know a little bit about him. He wasn't as talked about as some of the others in the draft. And remember, for Ronald Jones coming into the NFL from college, even if you're playing at USC, it's a little bit like an amateur guitar player who's played in a few bands and done, had some fun and maybe made a little bit of money off of it here and there. All of a sudden, he gets a chance to go on stage with Bob Seger. Okay. And he's asked to play along on a song or two. That guy's going to be nervous, no matter how much stage presence he's had, no matter how many Oktoberfests he's played or how many weddings he's been to. You get the chance to go to the big leagues all of a sudden, and get on stage with somebody like that. You're going to be a little bit nervous. You're probably going to be a little bit stiff. You're not going to play as your rhythm may not be as sharp because you're going to be thinking about 1,000 things. That's where Ronald Jones is right now.
Bob Seger, boy, one of your favorite musicians of all time. Actually, I'm kidding. We debate pop culture, and speaking of pop culture in our debates, it's just part of our final segment, which may be the best part of the segment. Justin, are you ready?
Here we go.
The Envious Podcast. You wish you had a 3 and out like this. Roy Cummings, 3 questions, and he is out of here. We're going to bring Justin Thomas in as well. We talked about the trade deadline, my friend. I'm going to have you become Bucs general manager right now. I want to throw you some scenarios. If you were sitting at your desk and you got this phone call, would you take the plunge? All right, our first question in our 3 and out. If somebody called and wanted Deshaun Jackson and would give you a 2nd or 3rd round pick, would you deal him?
Yeah, I would. The chemistry with Jameis Winston doesn't seem to be that good. You're deep at the running back. I'll be all right. Deep at the wide receiver position. I mean, Freddie Martino is actually a pretty good football player, has a hard time keeping a spot. He's no Deshaun Jackson. But if you're not going to get out of Deshaun Jackson what you wanted to get, which is that deep threat, I would be very tempted to take that second round pick for him. Again, when you start looking at where the Bucs may be headed, that could be a premium pick. And depending on what they want to do next year and what the draft looks like, you package a couple of twos in your one and move up a couple of spots and get some franchise caliber player, depending on what the position is, cornerback, defensive end, something like that. It's very tempting. I would strongly consider it.
I would do it in a heartbeat. And maybe if it's early enough, maybe you could package it with some picks to get Patrick Peterson. Now, that would be a lot of fun, but we're playing make-believe general manager here. Okay, before we get to our final pop culture question, our second question, Roy, and our 3 and out. If Jacksonville called you and said, we'll give you 2 first-round picks for Jameis Winston, what would you do?
Wow. Oh, wow.
How about that?
Gosh, that's a tough one.
Is it?
Look, franchise quarterbacks are hard to find. Okay?
Right.
The Bucs believe they have one. He's 24 years old, folks.
I don't know if I believe yet.
I don't, look, I'm not sure that a franchise quarterback came out of last year's draft. Everybody's excited about some of the young quarterbacks that came into the league. But, look, a year later, does Deshaun Watson look as good as he used to? No. Jared Goff does. But he's got a good team around him. Is Carson Wentz
Kansas City looks pretty good.
Has everybody made him out to be? Yeah, he looks pretty good, but look at the team. It's not special necessarily just yet. Doesn't look it. I'll tell you, if you honestly believe in Jameis Winston, 2 number ones look great, but you have to spend at least one of them on a quarterback, and if you miss, oh boy.
I take the 2 ones. I take the 2 or 3 for Deshaun. I ride Fitzmagic the rest of the year, and I have a lot of fun in that draft next year. A lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you would have fun on draft day, but if that pick doesn't work out for the quarterback, that'll be the end of your fun, my friend.
All right, our last question, our 3 and out segment. Bring Justin Thomas in here. Justin, by the way, would you give up 2 ones? I mean, would you trade Winston for 2 ones?
It's tough because this upcoming draft class, QB-wise, isn't too impressive. So I don't know if you want to wait 2 years to get that QB of the future. I kind of agree. Winston's young. Yes, he has his issues, but it seems like too much of a risk.
And need I remind you, gentlemen, the Buccaneers lead the NFL in offense and in passing, and they don't have a running game.
Well, I think Fitzmagic was a big part of that, my friend.
He might have been. But, it's not like Jameis Winston isn't throwing for 300-plus yards every time out.
That's true. All right, it's like an Elton John, Billy Joel thing again. You guys like Elton John, I like Billy Joel. I'll trade the picks, you keep them. Or I trade Jameis, you keep him. All right, our last question. We go pop culture. All right, if you could pick one actor to play your life story, your movie, the Roy Cummings movie, the Justin Thomas movie, the Merely Neighbors movie, you pick one actor, you got to cast him. He's gonna represent you in your story. Who are you gonna be? Who's it gonna be?
I think I'm gonna take Tom Hanks because I think he's probably the guy who could probably pull me off better. I mean, I don't need a De Niro to do it or anybody like that. I'm not George Clooney, that's for sure. I'm not Tom Hanks either, but Hanks can pull off just about anybody. I mean, it's not like I'm picking Adam Sandler to represent me. So, no, I'll take Tom Hanks.
All right, Justin.
That's a tough one. Growing up, everyone always said that I looked very similar to Harrison Ford, and I'm not tooting my own horn.
Oh, wow.
But he's too old to play me, so I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd have to think who's a younger actor that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to go Adam Sandler, David Spade.
No.
You're a taller guy. How about that guy that plays Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off? How about that guy?
Alan Ruck?
Yeah, how about that guy?
There you go.
I do like him, but he also is like 20 years older than me.
Yeah.
Sure. How about this? If I could do a time machine and go back in time and get the actor in his youth, I'll take him. I would use Alan Ruck.
All right, my deal is I'd pick Tom Cruise if he wasn't crazy and all that. So Tom Cruise, you're done. Matt Damon. How about Matt Damon?
Ooh, that's pretty good. That's nice.
Like that?
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm not George Clooney or any of that, but Matt Damon's to me kind of the every guy. I want to be the every guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to be Ben Affleck. I don't want to be Tom Cruise. I want to be Matt Damon.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Better than Bob Seger?
Yes, actually. But look, Bob Seger's not bad. He's,
better than Michael McDonald?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. Before we go, prediction time. Who's going to win the game, and what's the score going to be?
You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. Bucs win. Bucs win 28-23. Bucs win.
Ooh.
James Winston has a good game. Defense continues to simplify and execute properly. Even get a takeaway maybe off Andy Dalton. How about that?
Like it. You've been money. You predicted they'd lose against Pittsburgh. You predicted they would lose against Chicago. So you're on a roll. And that's when Justin and I went the other way. So, Justin, what do you got?
I know. I was going to go against Roy on this one, but he's been right pretty much thus far. So I wonder if I should switch. I'm going to stick with what I was initially thinking. I think Bengals have a really good offense. Bucs are going to struggle to keep them down. I'm going to pick Bengals to win. Let's go 30-24.
Okay, I'm going to pick Bengals too. I think the Quan thing is big. I agree with Roy. He hadn't played well early in the year, but he's a big part of that D. I don't think you're going to have Gerald McCoy out there. You're not going to have Kendell Beckwith. I think that defense is still kind of a mess. I don't have faith in the kicker, even though he kicked a 59-yarder. I think Jameis is going to turn the ball over a couple times. I'm going to go Cincinnati 27, the Buccos 23. How about that?
Okay. All right. I'm the outlier. That's all right.
Yeah. You always win when you're the outlier, though. That's
true.
I get it. For you. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. For Harrison Ford and Tom Hanks, I am merely Matt Damon, and I'd like to thank our title sponsors, House of Brews and Sea Dog Brewing Company. Great brews, great food, great service. Have fun, Bucs fans, watching the game Sunday. We'll have another podcast soon, and check out our video preview on pewterpirates.com. We just released that late Wednesday. So thanks for your time. Subscribe to pewterpirates.com. It's free, folks, and we'll see you soon.